boolean loops and operations. That's your to check if a value is true or false and to compare values. So now, for example, if you wanted to check if one value is equals to the other, you say, let's see, print, let's say our value is supposed to be, let's say 1 equals 2. You use equals to check, just to confirm that the value 1 is equals to value 2. Now when you are confirming if a value is equals to another, you can only have two outputs, that's either true or false. Now if I were to run this will bring false because 1 is not equals to 2. As you can see, it's brought out false because 1 is not equals to 2. So now if we are to try for strings, it will work the same way. For example, let's say my string is hello world, or let me just use hello to reduce typing. Hello. Now if I run this, it will bring truth because they are equals to each other. You see, they are the same, there is no difference. Can you see? True. Now the same thing applies to text, to numbers. You don't only have what's the name, the equals value, that's the comparison value. Now we have equals to, we have not equals to. For equal to, that's if you want to compare if two values are equals to each other, you use equals sign. Not equals to, you use exclamation then equal sign. Then greater than, you use greater than sign with, then smaller than, you use smaller than sign. Okay, greater than sign, smaller than sign. Then if you want to check if a value is greater than or equals to, you use greater than and equals to. Greater than and equals to. If you want to check if a value is lesser, you use lesser than and equals to. That's for less than and equals to. So now let's do some examples. So in our example, we will be checking different types of value. For example, now we declare a variable x equals 7. X equals 7. Now we say print into brackets x not equals 8. Now this will output true because x, which is 7, is not equals to 8 if we should run it. For example, can you see? True, because x is not equals to 8. Now if we were to do x greater than, let's see, 5. Okay, let's do x greater than 5. That's, I'll use the greater than sign. X greater than 5. If I were to run this, it will do the same and output a false because x, that's 7, is not greater than 8. Now you can also try less than. If you use x less than 8, it will be true because 7 is less than 8. So now let me run it. Can you see? True, because 7 is actually lesser than 8. Now you can also try x is less than or equals to 8. This will bring true because x is less than 8 but it's not equals to 8 but it's less than. So now if you run this, it will also bring true. Can you see? True. Now if we say x is greater than 8 or greater than or equals to 8, that will bring false because x is not greater than 8. So also note that comparator operators are also called relational operators. So now, since you know how the comparator operator works, just like your simple mathematics, that's your greater than or equals to, less than, not equal to, or equal to. Now we move to if statements. If statements are conditional statements. So to run a code based on a certain condition, you say if the condition, that's the boolean, evaluates to true, with if the statement or condition is also true, then the statement should be carried out. For example, you can say if x is equals to 2, print 5. That is, you use if x equals 2, you print, then print 5. I mean, you print x is equals to 2. Let's see, x equals 2. So now let me declare my variable x on top here. X equals 2. X equals 2. So now if I should run this, it will output x equals 2 because my condition is actually true. That's my mistake. So it will actually output x is equals to 2. It. So you can see it outputs x equals to 2. That's because our condition is true. But if our condition was not true, it won't do it. For example, if x is greater than 2, let's say we wanted something like if x is greater than 2, we use the greater than sign, that's this. Now if we run this, it will say x is greater than 2, it will print this. So now come in on. Now if I were to run this leaving x as 2, can you see it didn't do anything? Because we've not declared a function. What if x is not equals to 2? That's else. Normally if statements go like this, if else, meaning if this condition is true, do this, else do that. So we didn't declare our else statement, what it should do. So now if I made this 4 but 3, you see it will output x is greater than 2 because our condition is true. So now let's run it. Can you see x is greater than 2? So now let's make it a little bit complex. You know, I said you must declare else statement for every. So now that x is greater than 2, it will output this. But if x is not greater than 2, that means if the condition is not true, you should print this. So we use else. You print let's see, x is not greater than 2. So now if we run this normally to print x is greater than 2, for example, okay, I think I made an error there. So, coming up. It's most likely an indentation error. So can you see it's printed x is greater than 2? But what if I now turn that x to maybe let's say 2? If I turn that x to 2, instead of it to output x is greater than 2, it will output x is not greater than 2, because our condition is not valid. You know, we said it should only echo x is greater than 2 when x is actually greater than 2. But since our x is not greater than 2, it will echo x is not greater than 2, like this. Can you see? X is not greater than 2. Now, indentation determines which if-else statement the code block belongs to. Like it was showing error before. You know, it told me indentation error, meaning I should always indent the code, the code to run if the condition is true under the particular condition. You know, our condition here is x is greater than 2 if x is greater than 2, and this is the print statement indented a little bit to the right, leaving a space here. That's the meaning of indentation. You can just use your tab key to create indentation. Now, instead of using else, meaning if you are using too many if else in your code, you can use else if. That's elif, elif. You can use elif instead of using too many else if. For example, now let me see. For example, now you know here I said if x is greater than 2 equal x is greater than 2. Now instead of me to use else, then I'll go back and write if. I can just do elif instead of else. I'll just put elif. Oh, sorry. I can just do elif. Can you see? Now, if I use this elif, it will print x is not greater than 2. And I can come here again and say, elif. That's else if. Okay, wait, made a mistake. X. Else if x is, let's see, greater than or equal to. For greater than, you use this, or equal to, let's see, 4. Now, I'll now say print x is greater than or equals to 4. So now, okay, I made a mistake here. I was actually supposed, so for this place, the condition for this place is going to be x less than or equals to, or let's just say x is less than or equals to, let's see, 1. So meaning if our x is less than or equals to 1, it will output your x is less than or equals to 1. Can you see? Now our x here is 2. We all know our x is less than what's the name? Our x is less than is actually less than okay, so let's just call our x, let's name our x, let's see, 3. I mean, let's see, or let's say 5. If our x is 5, it will output x is greater than or equals to 4. So now what do? There's no error anywhere. Can you see? Okay, I actually made a mistake though. You see, I declared two this thing of the same type, 2 conditions of the same type. So it actually followed the first one. So now what I'll do is I'll change this to x is lesser than, or let me say x is lesser than 2. I'll change it to x is lesser than 2. Then to print x is lesser. So now if I were to run it again, output x is greater than or equal to 4, like that. But now if I make my x 1, or let's say I make it, let me make this less than or equal to, so it won't confuse again with the other condition. So now if I say my x is, let me say 2, let me just leave my x as 2. As 2. So now as I set it to 2, it should output x is lesser than 2. Can you see? X is lesser than 2 or equals to 2. That's the condition. It says following the first one. Yes, it's following the first condition. So now if I made it lesser than or equals to 1, if I made it lesser than or equals to 1, it will follow the second condition, which is x equals to less than or equals to 1. Then it will print x is less than or equals to 1. So wait, okay, this condition again, it's actually mixing them up because I mentioned multiple conditions. Let me just make this guy 6. Just make it greater than. So now if I run this again, it should bring out the statement saying x is less than 1. Can you see? X is lesser than or equals to 1. So that's how you use your elif statement. Note, the elif statement is equivalent to an else if statement. That means it's equivalent to an else if statement. Now it is used to make the code shorter, more readable, and avoid indentation increase. So that will be all for your boolean true or false comparison. So I'll just stop it there.